All right, I'm just gonna get right into it. So, rhetoric. There's two different presentations I'm gonna do. One is on the whiteboard because I wanna be artistic. I wanna be right brain. I wanted to sit down and come up with a piece of art. So this took me a couple of hours to do yesterday. Rhetoric isn't inherently bad, right? When we hear the word rhetoric, what happens? Do we have an emotional charge? Sometimes we do. It's just a tool. It's just a tool. It can be used for good or it can be used for bad, just like a hammer. Hammer can be used to build a shelter to shield us from the weather, and it can also be used in a rage to hurt somebody. And so it's just a tool, and that's what our communication can be. So it's an art, a skill, or a tool of communication. One of the best definitions I came up with was the art of reasoning well about shared truths, from a PhD at the University of Arizona who teaches English, Thomas P. Miller. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of rhetoric. So obviously it goes back to the inception of mankind, but many of the Trivium texts that we're looking at come from ancient Greece. I'm not giving the credit to ancient Greece, just a lot of the texts survived. So that's why we're talking about ancient Greece. Back then, there was a group of people called sophists, and you could think of sophists as professional linguistics to help people understand how to navigate the world. Now, back then, there were no lawyers. So if you had to go to the court of law and you weren't trained in linguistics or word devices or how to persuade people or communicate, you would lose. And so the sophists, they charged money. And the noble rich people were able to hire these people and get coaching, and then the poor class was not able to. And this appalled Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, right? Those are kind of the folks that some of the surviving texts that the Trivium is looking to and beyond. So these guys didn't like the sophists because they thought that inherent truth should be free and accessible to everybody. Just like this room here, we're just sharing the truth, right? And so I wanted to make a distinction here. Sophistry is trying to be right. We all do that. We start an argument, I just want to be right, and it's like, time out. A philosopher is trying to find truth, and sometimes that means to be humble and to take a step back and listen. What are these other people, or what is this other opinion trying to tell me, and how can I learn rather than just try to be right? Okay, so sophistry and philosophy. Winning an argument or discovering truth is another way to kind of look at the balance there, the polarity between the two. Poetry or manipulation. All right, Pythagoras thought there were four things that could heal the body: food, music, nutrition, and poetry. He thought those were all medicinal. Okay, so poetry or manipulation. What we're talking about today is we're talking about classical rhetoric. There's many forms of rhetoric, just like there's many forms of grammar. We're talking about a specific kind of grammar called general grammar, a specific kind of logic. It was called Aristotelian logic, also known as formal logic, and we're also talking about classical rhetoric, okay? This goes back to the 5th century BC, which is basically 500 years before Christ. You know, the time scale that we're using today, which has its issues, I know. But Socrates, he was inherently 100% against logic. It's actually very hard to find actual quotes from him trying to define what rhetoric is. So the best I could come up with is, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. Man, I feel this a lot when I'm really just debating with somebody just for truth, and I'm learning how to be really humble. There's an element of slander. Like just this week I got called, "You're an idiot," you know? Okay, you know, just stuff like that. It's like we're not trying to find truth anymore at that point when we use a logical fallacy called an ad hominem, or against the man, or attacking the man, all saying the same thing there, right? So that was Socrates' idea, that we should be philosophers, not sophists. Plato defined rhetoric as the art of ruling the minds of men. And back then when they said men, it wasn't a gender thing, it was humanity. They probably should have defined it better, but the way to control people's minds. That's how he... Now, Aristotle had a distinction. So Socrates was the teacher of Plato. Plato was the teacher of Aristotle. And Aristotle kind of went off on his own. And like, you know, this guy was a mystic. They're all brilliant. But Aristotle wrote a book called Rhetoric, you know, and it's a big volume. It's like an 8-hour audio book. I started listening to some of it, but I'll get to it eventually. And he defined it as an art form. He goes, look, if we just look at it as bad and we don't learn it, then other people are going to be able to use it against us. So we should invest a little bit of time and learn it, and then we can use it for the good of humanity and not just be a slave to everybody else's ideas that we don't understand, okay? And he defined it as observing the means of persuasion. Anywhere. Somebody else says it, you say it to yourself, whatever. The means of persuasion, okay? Basically, what Aristotle did is he came up with proofs so that you could take it, just like how logic has, you know, an argument is premises and conclusions, and you set up certain ways, and you can look at a bad argument and a good argument. You can also do that with rhetoric, right? So to make it really simple, there's artistic proofs. An artistic proof is your responsibility. That's how you use your words. That's described in the 3 appeals. Ethos, which is a fancy or a Greek way to say your credibility. How much credibility do you have, right? People aren't going to listen to you if they don't think you're credible. So that's number 1. He thought that was pretty important. Pathos is a way to say, I guess it's a Greek way to say emotions. Am I trying to play with somebody's emotions? Is somebody trying to play with my emotions? That's the ethos. And then the logos, like your logo. What do you stand for? Your message, basically your reason, your argument, your logic at that point. And he thought that any good argument, any good conversation, any good speech, written or verbal, should have a mixture of all 3. Otherwise it's out of balance. Okay, so that's his opinion. He also liked the 5 canons. That came about from Marcus Cicero, which was they call him sophist. He's just another philosopher before we indoctrinated what philosophy is. Another smart guy. And he had 5 canons of rhetoric, and this is all artistic proofs. So if you really got into this and you really wanted to understand what rhetoric was, and you looked at a piece of information coming at you, you could start to understand different types of rhetoric that the writer or the verbal person was using. Or if you're writing a paper, if you're coming up with a speech for the Trivium presentation or school or whatever, you want to first spend some time inventing, daydreaming, creating what it is you're talking about. You want to come up with a good argument, your reasoning. You want to come up with some style, figure out your delivery, and then you want to talk about memory. Okay? So those are artistic proofs. And then inartistic proofs are basically anything that you can say there. There it is. There it is. There it is. Anything in the outside world, whatever that means. I'm not here to define that for you guys. But things that exist. Facts, statistics, oaths, documents, contracts, laws, statutes, constitutions. Those are inartistic. And it's this balance of playing with the artistic ways in which we use language and playing with the things that exist in this world, and we come up with our rhetoric, okay? Metaphor is a tool we all use. You'll be talking to somebody and all of a sudden they start taking you on this story about somewhere else. And if you weren't trained on rhetoric, you might not know that could be potentially a rhetorical device. And so once you're keyed in, like before saying this, I had no idea. I had a conversation with somebody. They started taking me into a metaphor and I keyed in. And I took their metaphor, used their metaphor, added more metaphor to it to get my point in. And it was good. It was wonderful. I really appreciated the knowledge that I had. So that's my whiteboard presentation. And now I'll give you guys some paper and we'll just quickly read through some other definitions. You guys can just pass some of these around. And I define the who, what, when, where to the best of my ability. Questions so far on this stuff? Trying to make it simple. It's a big mountain of information. Just trying to make it palatable. Yes?
I was just thinking something. I was researching Socrates spelled with a K.
I don't know.
It's a black dude,
Could be.
right? So then what about his students? What about Plato and Aristotle? So if that was true and it was changed, what other elements were changed and controlled? I mean, obviously we're experiencing this being removed from general population.
I'm open to it. I don't know. I haven't gone that far. I just got enough information to present to you in a way that's palpable. But absolutely, when it's time for anybody else to do there, if you guys want to go that, totally. Yes.
I'd love to support this, to be clear.
Thank you.
Plato taught Socrates.
Okay.
Aristotle, these are different generations.
Right. Didn't Aristotle train under Plato?
Athens was founded by the Pharaoh.
Okay.
The word academy was when ancient Egypt became upset with these game players. Because in the word academy, they started studying in Alexandria and Timbuktu, all of Europe, and the Mediterranean, all of North Africa, most of the world. It included the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, India, and its teaching. Abraham is a Brahmin. In Greek, when you're using words like Hermetic, that relates to India through Egypt.
Wonderful.
So all these are different teaching zones and time periods. The reason they became upset over the academies was they did right in bringing the schools there and had transmutating teachers. What went wrong in the eyes of those who taught Kemet, which is the essence of what you're dealing
Right.
with, those who saw it that way saw that those in Europe, Europeans, had taken the magnifying glass of observation and felt separate from that which they're observing.
Yes.
That produced a complete total chaos in transmission of these schools of knowledge.
Yes.
Then when you speak of Sophitic, that's from Rome.
Right. Yes.
That's
the oratory.
That's a different time period. Where you saw that was in Augustus Caesar, who had a girlfriend, an old lady with a child called Cleopatra.
I agree with you. I think it's too deep for me right now. I'm just trying to get a surface level to you guys, and then, because again, this is just
I'm
my
sorry.
best. No, it's great.
I just studied these.
It's wonderful, and I
My
want to learn
whole
from you.
life.
I just want to give.
And I wanted to make it simple
Yes.
for anybody to absorb.
Yes.
These are code, ladder things.
Yes.
But life is in the fiber that makes the ladder.
What was the last thing you said?
Life
Life
is in the fiber of what makes the ladder. I'm only speaking as a person 19.
You probably know much more than me.
Who was pulled by a 12-year-old boy and then understood that knowledge has nothing to do with age or anything. It's something we're all hungry, thirsty for. And we can absorb it in the structural format and also in simplicity of how we get there. That's why I was explaining clearly what the engine of a human flesh bag has a heart beating and it took air. Then the mind got its growth. This is things that Socrates, Plato, Aristotle knew. I'm the one that changed your that to a K by rubbing out. That
Sure.
And it shouldn't have a C. It should not have a C because ancient Greek never had C.
That's wonderful.
So when we're clear about looking at what we're seeing and perceiving to learn to know, it's good not to learn deficits as your logic you showed. It will absorb them as truths. not examine what is true,
Yeah.
not be challenged to open up, to keep learning, like the wind going through the tree,
Yeah.
light.
I'm just a student in all this, doing my best to.
I'm a student of my master.
Yeah.
And
Good.
my master was a student of his master. The teacher I'm referring to, one of them, is Ganesh Baba. He was born in 1890. The Civil War ended in 1865. I learned from those who live here on earth. He was friends with Einstein, Timothy Leary, lots of people. He's a multi-millionaire that owned all the theaters in India. Once his wife passed away, then his son moved on. Then he became a student of Sri Yukteswar, the guru of Yogananda. That's the one that gave me my name. That's why I'm
Thank you.
speaking, because I'm hearing stuff, but I would like to see good direction come. This is structural. The simplicity of what I'm trying to communicate may clash with structural, because it's the tools for the structural to grow as seeds. So somewhere we start with simplicity about breathing, I'm alive. That comes from the beginning book that you call the Bible or Bible, where the Creator says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with the God, and it became God. That's breath, neural electricity, and the fiber optics that produced the ancient Kemet laws that built the pyramids. We're playing mind games on verbal and knowledgeable history from post-Columbus, which altered iconography and all previous laws in the late 1500s, because people aren't open to learning by racial encoding. We forgot we all came from culture, which had credos. And these credos came from clans. And clan in Native America only comes from mobs. Men have society, tobacco society. So when we say he, H-E, there was a she, S, to create life.
Yes, there was.
And until we get our bullshit out of the way and are willing to be thirsty to learn, we should learn from people with knowledge, knowing the ledge.
True.
And that's why children are leading, blinding the blind. We'll never pull out of the paradigm of a money machine culture until we understand what it's like. Money machine was put on life, it's not life. When you guys were speaking about will and bodybuilding, it comes from self. Neural electricity was studied by those people way back in South Africa when they studied how do we transmit words so you can hear, understand, process beyond this level, so you understand that. So what they did from universities around the world was they studied that tribe of Bushmen in South Africa, because right by the tip of South Africa, they understood the Garden of Eden was probably Mount Kilimanjaro. And the first man is black men and women who are blue-black. The rest turned out Mexican, brown, and then white duck. All these are migrational journeys. Ultimately, they understand from linguistics that you would have an old lady, and all you can do in that day and age is go, well, I like you. Bam! Hit her over the head, drag her to your cave, and impregnate her. Then you're gonna go, my pals are like you. Stay by the cave. That's where herbology came from. Then they would run into, like I would run into a woolly mammoth. He'd have to come back to his house and go, something.
This is my attempt to crawl. I'm just crawling. So
Ultimate-
I'm open to it. Can I continue?
Please, I'm sorry.
Okay, so this piece of paper here is another aspect of my information, and I'm open to being corrected and continue to learn. This is not about me being a lecturer. This is a seminar. We're all in it together, and I do appreciate everything that you're saying. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So the study of rhetoric educates one in a particular liberty. The liberty to handle the world, to remake it, if only a little, and to hand it to others in a shape which may influence their actions. Okay? Who? That's your ability to understand how other people use language to communicate their ideas with you, as well as your ability to understand how you use language to communicate your ideas to other people. Also what your own inner voice is saying to yourself in your head. And you definitely can go further and go into heart intelligence and body intelligence. So what? The third art of the 7 liberating arts found in the Trivium. A skill or tool using general grammar and formal logic to express classical rhetoric. Your how to others, and others' how to you, aka attempts to influence you through all forms of communication, such as language devices, like we're going to talk about, gestures, body language, symbols, music, performing arts, advertising, movie, TV shows, video games, lawyers in a court of law, politicians, public relations, Facebook conversations, family dinner time, conversations with coworkers, and more. Some have said rhetoric is knowing what to say at the right time in the right way to influence, inform, or provoke. So when? As long as humans have been communicating, a form of rhetoric has been in play. Much of what classical rhetoric, which pertains to the Trivium method, was written by the Greek philosophers. Aristotle, 470 BC to 399 BC, is said to be the father of rhetoric for his communication, or his contribution, Rhetoric, by Aristotle, where he sets many of the rules found in the Trivium method. He wrote about artistic proofs as logos, pathos, ethos, and the 5 canons, and inartistic proofs as facts, statistics, documents, contracts, and constitutions, and more and more. Where? Well, here's a couple of devices that you might be able to take away today. These are things we use all the time. So a rhetorical question. It's basically asking a question just to see how others react or to make a point. An enthymeme is a rhetorical argument, which basically you're not even worried about logic, you're just trying to impose your will on other people's. The pathos, ethos, and logos, like I talked about. The 5 canons, like I talked about. Other ones, like arranging your ideas, or a metaphor, life is like a box of chocolates. An analogy, a comparison. Irony, which is sarcasm. Paradox and oxymoron, contradictions, or like a 3-part harmony. I came, I saw, I conquered, Alexander the Great. Again, I'm not endorsing anything, I'm just simply sharing what I've been able to study. So why? Why is subjective with the Trivium? That's what we're all trying to come to. It's your reality. You're putting all the bits and pieces together. To understand the science of humankind at all levels of communication, to become more powerful and empowered with the words you speak and the words you use. Have you ever bargained with a car salesman to lower a price? Wanted to negotiate a raise with your boss? Needed to give a presentation in front of a group? Had an argument with a friend over a controversial topic? Or made a complaint over the phone? Have you ever written an essay, composed a letter, applied for a job, read a book, watched an advertisement, or contributed to a blog? What do you need for all of these to be well? You need rhetoric. So how? It's the ability in any case to see all available means of persuasion. It's Aristotle. And that's my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.